Hello? How are you all today? So, Sai, would you like for me to just get started?
Yes.
Okay. I hope that I'm not on a really big screen. My head isn't normally this big. You probably heard that from activists before, though. No, my head's not this big. So, I'm very, very honored to be able to join you all today. You all look amazing out there in the crowd. How has the conference been today? Great. Wow. So Sai had asked me to speak a little bit about what the Occupy Wall Street movement has looked like here in the United States, especially here in New York City. My name is Connor Thomas Reed, and I'm an educator as well as a student at the City University of New York. I've been involved in the Occupy Wall Street movement basically since it began on September 17th. To start out, the big picture. Sorry?
No, it's all good.
Oh, okay, sorry. The big picture here is that we're experiencing a really huge upsurge struggle in the United States for the first time in a long time. A lot of people who have been participating are getting involved in radical activity for the very first time. There are new modes of activity that people are starting. It's not really the same old bag of tools that people are using. Much support that people are integrating on a daily basis is really growing every day. In the words of one of our fellow radicals who had visited Liberty Square at some point, Naomi Klein, she asked people here, what took us so long? We're definitely learning from what's happening with different struggles that are happening around the world, and we're learning how to, in our own ways here in the United States, really put the elite of society on the defense. So to share a little bit about how we got here, the occupation's been lasting more than a month here in New York City, basically a brick's throw from Wall Street. This place that was Zuccotti Square, now Zuccotti Park, now it's been renamed Liberty Square. On September 24th, there were over 80 violent arrests that had happened. We experienced a lot of significant police brutality. I'm sure that a lot of you have heard from and seen videos of people being maced, people being kettled. So that was an amazing amount of police brutality that we experienced at the very beginning of our movement here. But something that's very different is that in the face of that, a tremendous outpouring of public support occurred. So on October 1st, that was when we decided to walk across the Brooklyn Bridge. I'm not sure if any of you saw footage from that. Over 700 people were arrested for taking over the Brooklyn Bridge. I was on that bridge. I would definitely walk across it again. Then on October 5th, there was a day of action after these 700 people were arrested. Many people across campuses, unions, community activist groups decided to have a day of coordinated New York City action. So on that day, students walked out of our campuses and we had a mass march of tens of thousands of people. Again, a little smaller compared to standards happening around the world, but that was a very big next step for us. Then on October 14th, we heard calls that our mayor, Michael Bloomberg, and the owners of the property were going to evict Liberty Square. What we did was we set up an emergency response network in order to really flood that area with a lot of public support. We notified people ahead of time, and we were able to resist that eviction. So that happened on a Friday. Right afterwards, Saturday, October 15th, an International Day of Action against banks, had a tremendous amount of people who came out to converge on Times Square. There were hundreds of thousands of people there, completely reshaping what Times Square could and should be. I was involved earlier that day in a Citibank action where people had decided to take money out of their bank accounts, and for coming into Citibank as people who were banking customers, we were locked into the bank and we were arrested for it. So I promise I'm not really that much of a fan of going to jail, but apparently it's something that happens a little bit more often than I would like. But October 15th, I think, was a really extraordinary day. We saw in London, in Italy, in many different parts of the United States, from what I heard, hundreds and hundreds of different places around the world, people said together, banks are the problem. The economic austerity that we're experiencing is not being meted out across the board. It's really being meted out on the backs of those who are already poor in society. So we really thought that was an amazing step in looking at how days of action don't necessarily have to be just national, but it's something that we can coordinate internationally. So most recently, there was a tremendous amount of brutality that happened in Oakland. As I'm sure that some of you have heard, police came in with riot gear, used tear gas, rubber bullets, and even shot a veteran named Scott Olson with a tear gas canister, and he's currently in critical condition. In response to that, there were solidarity marches and rallies across the United States the next day. And back in Oakland, thousands of people decided to retake the park, which they've successfully done. So what are the next steps? The next steps are in Oakland, there's a call for a general strike on November 2nd. The last time this was called in California was in the 1940s, so you can tell that it's been a while since the labor movement has had something this tremendous happen. We're planning solidarity actions across the country. Some people might be doing work stoppages for a short amount of time. Other people might be holding rallies, walkouts. November 17th in New York City is going to be the next big day of action for Occupy Wall Street. Unions are going to be targeting bridges and tunnels and trying to shut them down. Student walkouts are going to be occurring across campuses. We're going to be having mass actions across all 5 boroughs converging in Manhattan. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to think about the ways that we can make sure that every single person across all sectors, across all different kinds of student, community, labor experience can participate with varying levels of intensity. There are some people who will want to get arrested. There are some people who will just want to make classroom announcements. There are some people who want to design posters, while others will want to hoist them up in the streets. And what we want to do is to demonstrate that this is a movement where every single person can participate and that we can really reshape what it means to have community interaction. So what we're wanting to do is to show that in New York City, the anti-budget cuts fight and the anti-austerity fight is clearly anti-racist, is clearly anti-sexist, that must involve immigrants at the very center of the movement. And what we're also wanting to do is to have a little bit of fun in the process. So what we want to do is encourage different ways that people can have thematic, artistic, performative components to protesting. I know that a lot of times protesting may seem like this really stoic and even sometimes dire experience, but all exceptionally creative people, and we can come up with ways how to show a different kind of society. What do you all think about that? I want to just say a few more things about this being a conference that's specifically related to education. What a lot of people are seeing is that we need to be seeing education, academia, as a means, not an end. We look to the examples of students and teachers in Chile, in London, in other parts of England, as well as in Puerto Rico, for examples of whenever students and teachers talk about shutting down campuses, that doesn't mean ending activity. That means actually a redirecting of all of our energies towards ways how to proliferate a new way of looking at education, a new way of looking at the pursuit of ideas and the pursuit of practicing those ideas, putting them into action. So different kinds of ways that we would normally collaborate with each other, giving presentations, writing down documents. What we're trying to do is look at how we can make that public. When we talk about reclaiming public areas and public schools, that also means differently occupying them. We go to school on a regular basis. What would it mean if we were to think about school as a place for liberatory practice? So something that people have been deciding to do here recently in New York is start taking up public documents, writing about, theorizing what does Occupy Wall Street, Occupy the World mean to us, putting out pamphlets, also archiving all of this in real time. When we're discussing what things look like 1 month from now, 2 months from now, we should have a clear sense of where we've been and where we're going throughout the entirety of this. So with that, I'm hoping that we're able to use technology. Thank you. With that, I'm hoping, I see, thank you. I think that we can also really use technology at our disposal that we have. I'm talking with you all right now on a Skype call. We have stuff like this monthly, where people in New York City are talking to people in England, are talking to people in Chile, talking to people in Greece, in order to shape more international days of action. In many ways, we're learning a lot from the struggles that you all are doing right now in your parts of the world. In many ways, we have a lot to catch up to and a lot to live up to in seeing all of the inspiring work that you all have been doing to a really tremendous degree across the pond. But we're really trying to emulate that here. I hear that on November 30th, there's going to be a public sector strike. Did I hear correctly? And that's an incredibly inspiring thing for us here. Here in the United States and in New York City, people who are teachers, who are public sector workers, are not allowed to strike. And what we're trying to do is figure out how we can challenge those laws. Taking strikes, taking our work into our own hands, redirecting the kind of work that we're able to do, that's really a large part of this Occupy movement. And so, what I want to say in closing is we have a lot of work to do. It is an incredibly exciting amount of work that we're wanting to do. And what I hope that people can see is that this is a movement that won't last a month. This is a movement that won't see immediate broad changes, but that it'll actually take a lot of dedication and a lot of action in order to make the real profound lasting changes that we want. We talk about, the people are unstoppable, another world is possible, and we really mean that. We really want to reach across the world with other people and really put that into action. And so from New York City, from Occupy Wall Street, I want to say hearty solidarity to you all, and I hope we can talk more about organizing and really changing this world to make it what we want in these coming years. Thank you all.
And in Glasgow at the moment we're fighting against the cuts And that's a movement that started last year with the student protest, and we had the Free Havering occupation, and that was the longest university occupation that there was, and it won massive victories. And now that same movement is gearing up with new people who've come in, who've experienced the student protest of last year, and who are ready to fight. And we're getting ready for November the 30th, which is the next step in the fight against cuts. And I think we need to put November the 30th into context of, and that's why this was just so exciting to hear about Occupy Wall Street and what they're doing with the education shutdown there, is that it's part of a global resistance, with hundreds of thousands of students in Chile putting their government in turmoil, with the huge strikes in Greece, and with continuing revolutions across the Arab world, and of course the Occupy movement that's erupted across the world. We've got Occupy movements in Glasgow and in Edinburgh that are still camping out, going strong, and they're raising the slogan of the 99%. And I think here at EAN, that's exactly what we're fighting for, is education for the one that's not run by the 1% and for the 1%. And for those lucky few who get in, they're getting trained up to be more profitable for the 1%. It's education for everybody, public education, that should be free for anyone at any stage in their life. But that's obviously not the vision that David Willetts has got. The vision that he's got is to marketise education, to privatise it, and to run it in the interest of the 1%. And I think that to stop that, we need strike action. And that's the only way that we're going to win, is with serious strikes, with massive and long strikes, because that's what hits the 1% where it hurts, and that's when they listen. When workers go on strikes, they disrupt profits, and that's the only language that people like David Willetts speaking is profit, and that's how we can win. So students have to use the militance and the energy and the power that we showed last year with Millbank and with the walkouts and occupations, and we need to use that and bring it to the picket lines, because we must unite with workers, and that's exactly what EAN is about. It's an organisation that brings together lecturers and students, and now with November the 30th, I think EAN is more important than ever, because we want to see on November the 30th not just workers, not just 3 million workers, but hundreds of students on every picket line on campus, out there standing shoulder to shoulder with workers, and ensuring that there's a real education shutdown, and spreading the word so that everyone on campus knows why you should never cross a picket line, and that no one on campus does, because they understand the situation, and that workers are on strike for all of us and for the whole of education. But to do that, there's some practical steps that we have to take. We have to leave with the vision in mind of what we want November the 30th to look like, and what we want to see, and we need to start building that by doing shout-outs in lectures so that everybody knows what's going on, by getting petitions out. There's the EAN Pledge to Resist that we can get people to start signing. And I think that we need to start seeing occupations in universities in the build-up, so that we can have those as like organising bases to get out to all the students. And I think also the other important thing is going to FE colleges, because those people are under attack viciously, the worst, and they're really angry about it. Young people and people who are in FE colleges or unemployed are so angry, and we've seen that in August with the riots, and we need to be going out there and saying there is something that we can do, and we can fight back, and getting out to those FE students so that they're part of the fight back on November the 30th. That's the kind of action that means that November the 30th could be the sort of united movement that does bring together students and workers, because it's workers who have the power to bring down the government, and we can sort of lead the way and be part of that movement. We've seen mass resistance in this country and across the world, but mass resistance needs mass agitation to carry it forward and to focus it so that it can win. And that's the job of everyone in this room, that when they go back to their campuses right now, because there's not that long till November the 30th, that we're starting to build that. And I think that way we'll definitely beat them for sure. So.
Thanks for the invitation to speak. I mean, it is really inspiring to see everybody here. I'm going to say some things which I think have already been said today but need to be reinforced. The context of the white paper, because I'm going to concentrate on the education aspect of the current crisis, is a financial crisis and associated economic depression brought about by neoliberal policies of deregulation. The solution, from the government's point of view, is to privatise university education, to marketise university, and increase the role of for-profit activities. In other words, it's a neoliberal solution to a problem whose very cause is neoliberalism itself and its religion of the market. And I think one has to say religion of the market because there's an article of faith to continue with it despite the evident recession that it's causing. The cutting of the deficit, the claim that is put forward is that it's being done in the name of future generations. But the shifting of the cost of higher education from public funding to individual students via fees supported by loans is a shift of the burden onto future generations. This is an issue of a deep generational injustice, I think. But the new system is not cheaper to the taxpayer either. This is what we heard this morning. Only to a certain section of current taxpayers. The future burden of the loan system will have to be paid by future taxpayers, including those who graduate from university in the future with unprecedented levels of debt. It's a double whammy, in other words. And it isn't what the public want. It is out of step with public attitudes. The government says it represents taxpayers, but this is what the British Social Attitudes Survey, which surveyed taxpayers, i.e. the British population, adult population, about what they think of higher education. 75% think student debt is too high already. That's without these reforms coming in, or these changes coming in. 70% think university is about more than employability. Only 7% answered saying that employment was the crucial aim of university education. 65% think that universities should be funded the same. That is, there should not be differential fees. That's what the British public think. And the British public, in similar percentages, also think that Britain is a deeply unequal society in which money helps you get ahead. In other words, they're conscious of the consequences of inequality for social mobility. And the debts will be unprecedented. Average students for fees after these changes, average fees for students in England will be higher than in any other OECD country. We currently have a higher education system that outperforms that of the US, despite the US spending 2.7% of GDP. The UK spends 1.2% of GDP on higher education against a 1.5% average in OECD countries. We already spend less, and that less that we spend, we have one of the lowest public investments in higher education. 0.6% of GDP is invested in higher education. Okay. Some say we're moving in an American direction, but we're not. We're moving beyond America. That's what it means to have the highest average student debt in the OECD. And by 2014, welfare spending in the UK will be lower than that of USA if the current cuts go in. We will be the British model or the English model for the American right. That's a deeply depressing thought. And there is an alternative. People are talking about what is Plan B in a recession. Plan B in a recession is investment in higher education. This is what the OECD says. Public investments in education, particularly at the tertiary level, are rational, even in the face of running a deficit in public finances. Issuing government bonds to finance these investments will yield significant returns and improve public finances in the longer term. The evidence is invest in public higher education during a recession, not cut it back. But it's a generational injustice, I think, that compounds the social injustice of widening inequalities and means that it's vital that we all unite in resistance to this. And one of the reasons why the 30th of November is important is a generational injustice is faced by injustices confronted by both ends of the generations, pensions and student fees.
Hello everyone, I'm very glad to be here talking about what's going on in Chile, and I hope that this could be relevant for what's happening in Europe and Britain right now. I'll do it as fast as I can because you promised me 8 minutes, so I have to cut it.
Wasn't me.
No, it was mine. Yeah. So, what has been going on in Chile since the beginning of this year can be described as a major civil unrest with the economic and institutional and political structures that have been undemocratically imposed more than 30 years ago. The student movement has made possible the actual visibility of the roots of this unrest. The forced imposition of an extreme version of the neoliberal model. Chilean students and the majority of citizens are struggling for a structural change in our educational system. They don't want to improve the system, as the governments like to say, but to change it entirely. Students felt that what still remained of public education deserved to be defended against private interest and a state mostly devoted to ensure a good business climate. But as months went by, students felt compelled to go further and demand the end of profit, end to all usurious credits, and the restoration of public education guaranteed by the state. They understood that the root of the disastrous and unjust Chilean educational system lay in the legal and economic model imposed by Pinochet's dictatorship, a neoliberal experiment, as they say, to refer to the economic policies implanted in Chile since 1975, mainly by the influence of a group of Chilean economists known as the Chicago Boys. The students' particular demand could not be solved without tackling first the institutional arrangement created by the dictatorship. The existing Chilean educational system was set up within the context of the 1990 Chilean Constitution. This was an illegitimate document imposed in a military dictatorship by a fraudulent referendum. In 1990, General Pinochet approved the organic constitutional law of education, known as LOCE, just one day before he left power. This law set up the basic principles that would trigger subsequent conflicts and the civil unrest of the Chilean people. The three main lines of this law were personal responsibility of the parents in the education of their children, freedom for privatization and market-driven education, and depoliticized education with minimum state control. So, as you may recognize, these are some of the basic principles of the neoliberal doctrine. Therefore, students are essentially questioning these neoliberal principles. They have become conscious that this not only allowed institutionalized inequalities, but an economic assault on the working class, who is now forced to go into debt with huge interest rates for life. So the emergence of this student movement is the symptom of huge contradiction within Chilean neoliberal society. Our so-called democratic society, as politicians like to emphasize, is grounded on the repression and outright exploitation of the majority of the population, much like the process of primitive accumulation that gave birth to bourgeois society as a whole. So, how this movement concretely emerged? Between the final years of President Michelle Bachelet and 2010, when the right-wing candidate Sebastián Piñera got into power, the social unrest was rising for various reasons. The crisis of the transport system, the brutal repression of the Mapuche people in the south, and the outrageous and undemocratic approval of several thermal power stations across the country. These problems were aggravated once Piñera got into power. This was mainly because instead of doing something about them, his administration chose to pose as a right-wing populist and mediatic government, highly ideological in the neoliberal sense, often using national catastrophes such as the 2010 earthquake and the miners' accident to distract public opinion over social issues. I'm gonna go back to the end because it's a long way. The occupation of the universities and schools started in June, while the number of people, not only students, marching weekly on the street was rising up to 400,000 nationally. The proposal of the education minister, Joaquin Lavín, a former Chicago boy, got rejected by the students. 33 high school students began a hunger strike that lasted for more than 70 days. In August, workers and students called for a national two-day strike, demanding major tax reform, a national referendum, and a new democratic constitution through a constituent assembly. To finish up, from students and worker union to strong social organizations and regular people, right now this movement is way beyond a student movement. And this is because the struggle has tended to be universalized, from initial particular requests directed at the government to claims aiming to critique state institutions rather than passively accept its rules, to finally, when particular demands come together, radicalize and produce an overt-attack to the system as such. And I think that when we are at the gates of this third stage, any kind of political action needs to go further than mere resistance and attack, fight back, and propose alternatives. To close. So, really to close, some acknowledgements. I want to thank Luke Staunton and Emma Davis from Liverpool for their support and friendship, and also to Mark Berthel, Dave Sewell, and the Education Activist Network for inviting me. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Sorry, I'm being so brutal with the timings. So the next speaker is Cyril Baker from Occupy London Stock Exchange.
Right, hi. I'd like to start off with saying something which I think you'd probably all agree with. I was actually there at the demo when they basically increased the fees up to a maximum of £9,000, and I was similarly disgusted because basically I still had grants when I did my BA, and then moved on to having huge fees when I did my Masters. So just want to leave that on one side. Okay, just want to start with a little history. I think there's been quite a lot that's been said, but following the original inspiration, maybe the Arab Spring, it's moved on to Spain with the Indignados movement onto Occupy Wall Street. And then basically on the 15th of October, there was a call out for occupations all around the world. We were one of those, which reached 82 countries, about 1,000 cities, and about 1,500 actions. And on the first day at St. Paul's, we actually had about 4,000 people, which was pretty good. I suppose the basis of this is that we've opened up a space for a real democratic process. We've made it inclusive. Anybody can come in or out of the process. And we're trying to use basically consensual decision-making. So if you've seen lots of people making strange hand signals like this, that's basically some of what those things are. I don't know if people want me to run through those or through process. Anybody recognize? No, okay, I won't do that. There you go, there's consensual decision making for you. Right. Also been trying to use non-violent communication wherever possible, trying to keep it nice and fluffy, to try and basically increase the longevity, the amount of time that they're actually going to let us stay there. And I don't know how much you'd want to hear about potential issues about if we're going to get closed down or not, but I can go on to that possibly later. Right. Basically, we've also made it a non-party political space. Obviously, everybody's got their opinions and they're perfectly entitled to those. The general idea is to try and get as many people as possible included in the process. Making it party political leads to quite a lot of splittism and so forth, and you can still represent those opinions as yourself rather than just your party. And okay, maybe I'm going slightly too much into process. We've had lots of working groups that have just mushroomed a hell of a lot. It's been really impressive. I mean, it's over the first 2-3 days, we already had a kitchen working on huge amounts of donations, volunteer workers, goodwill of people. And we got basically what is a city in miniature now, with anything from recycling, tents, media, legal, medical, kitchen, outreach, shelter, etc. And I won't go into detail, but there's lots of systems that's running really, really well. And that's keeping basically all of us going. Basically, I think you could split down the various initial demands. Actually, sorry about that. Right. I don't know if you want to pass some of these around. That's actually got our initial statements on the back. Obviously, it's an organic process and it's ongoing. It's constantly changing. You've also got the website details and everything. And obviously, these things are going to get better over time. You have to remember, we've not quite been, oh Jesus, there for more than 2 weeks yet. So, okay. Basically, you could split down the issues after reading that into real democracy, discrimination issues, financial and corporate control of 1% versus the 99%, and that includes issues such as banking. There's actually a statement which might be coming out versus specifically the City of London, which people don't understand very well, and which would actually be very strong. It got partially leaked to The Guardian. You might want to check that out. Okay. Other stuff there would be regulation, real regulation by people who are not actually doing the job. For example, banks not regulating themselves, which is not the case, but okay. Basically, there's also mutual support, hopefully, between both us, occupations around the world, and workers out there, which is why, as one of the points is that we fully support the strike on November 30th. Hopefully we'll have many people down for that. We've also been supporting the Sparkies demos, the electricians who've basically pay cut recently and a whole other set of conditions. And we now have a group liaising with various trade unions, anything from sort of like PCS, UCU, etc. And we are going to be giving them as much support as possible and hopefully getting some support from them. We're also going to be, hopefully, can I take 2 minutes? I'll be as brief as possible, please. One. Okay. Right, okay. Basically, we are against the cuts. It is in the statement. We want to support libraries, the sort of like health workers, and all the other people who are suffering at the moment. And hopefully that can be a two-way process as well. So like just issues of unemployment, social welfare, we don't want that. You've got war, anti-war issues, environmental and climate change, structural change, and issues around equity and justice for the oppressed. Specifically, as a group who are here as students and lecturers, we do have a 10-city university. If any of you want to do teach-ins, workshops, skill shares, or just participate in the process as members of the 99% that are here. Also, the points for debate at the moment, which are quite big, are should we be issuing specific demands or should we keep the discussion process alive at the moment, basically not bang down to the media and some of the public. or should we really be going into demands now and risk co-option, capture, and hollowing out our message? Yeah, I'll leave it.
The next person I'd like to invite to speak is Jennifer Hilliard, who is part of Parents for Real Justice and a mother of arrested students.
I'm completely new to activism, complete convert in the last 11 months. Both my sons were arrested on the 9th of December. You'll probably have seen them all over the news because they're the two protesters accused by David Cameron of pulling a police officer off his horse. They're protesting their innocence and they're fighting their case. They were in court over the last 2 weeks. We had a hung jury. We're going back to court again in March. That aside, that's how I came into activism. But Parents for Real Justice was set up because there's a real gap. We've got a lot of people getting involved in demonstrations for the first time, and their parents have no idea what goes on and what support they actually need. So we've got a group of young people getting involved, getting arrested, sometimes getting into trouble, etc. And we've got parents who don't know where to go for support. They don't realise that the people they need to go and talk to are actually the activists. And sometimes that's a big gap. It's a big chasm for a parent to suddenly start taking advice from some of these other groups. I mean, Green and Black have been fantastic for us. LGMG, Legal Defence and Monitoring Group, again, have been absolutely fantastic support for us. But it took a big, deep breath from me to actually go and approach them and accept the offer of support they were giving us and the information they were giving us. It's not an easy thing for parents to do. We've got a lot of parents whose kids are just getting legal aid. Their kids were at college, and some of them at school when they were arrested. They've not had the best legal advice and they need support. So that's where we came in. That's how we came to be as Parents for Real Justice. But we've got a bigger campaign running at the moment. We have a lot of people coming to trial over the next few weeks and few months, going on towards the end of March and into April. But we have a society who believes what the media has told them or what the police has told them about these demonstrations. And for any of you who were there at those demonstrations, it wasn't like that, was it? No. I have gone through hours and hours and hours of footage, finding information, finding evidence for my boys. And it became very clear to me a number of things. One, not everybody has a mum who's going to sit and do that with them and for them. And two, there's another story here, and there's a story that's not being told. There's a story, especially on the 9th of December, of a demonstration that started off peacefully. And it became violent at about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Now, I searched and searched and searched to find out why it became violent. And then we came across a piece of footage. It's taken at the end of Victoria Street Broad Sanctuary, looking across the police line. Police on one side, quite calm, no pushing, no shoving. Protesters, about 2 feet between them. Again, no pushing, no shoving. Peaceful demonstration. A few fireworks going off, a few loud bangs, a bit of an air horn. Nothing much else going on. A little bit of a kerfuffle along the front line towards Westminster Abbey. We believe that's what the first time that the police tried to pull Jodie McIntyre out of his wheelchair, because my boys were standing right behind him when it happened. The camera pans, there's a slight murmur comes over the crowd, and the camera turns down Victoria Street, away from Parliament. And there are in excess of 20 horses galloping at that crowd. And that crowd suddenly changes, not surprisingly. And that is mitigation. That is self-defence. On our website at the moment, www.parentsforrealjustice.org.uk. Go and have a look at it. There's a letter there. Download it. Send it to your MP. Send it to the House of Lords. Send it to anybody you can think of. Because we need to change public opinion. If we're going to stop our kids going to jail, and we're going to persuade juries that actually the students aren't the baddies, that it's possible for police to lie, I'm a changed person in the last 12 months. My MP believes, because I wrote to him, this will make you really laugh, George Osborne. He believes that a huge number of demonstrators on that day went there with the intent of being violent. The police portray that as the image. The CPS are saying the same thing. We have to challenge that. We have to change public opinion. We need your help to do that. We need your help to campaign with us. But we also need your help to come forward as witnesses to support these protesters. We had a witness came through last week. We couldn't use them in the trial because obviously the jury was out by that time. But we'll use them in March. So there are things that you can do to help. You can come forward as witnesses. If you've got footage, get it on the internet. We're in the process of setting a website at the moment that will collate footage and link it into a map for defendants only to have access to. It will be stored off UK soil. It will be stored probably in Holland on a server over there to protect it. And defendants will be able to access it through their solicitors or through one of the support groups who will contact us directly, and we will give them access to it. So we're trying to do some things here that will really help defenders and give them the courage to fight. Because do you know what? There is a defence to violent disorder. The defence is self-defence. And do you know when the police are beating you up, that is self-defence. And that's what we should be fighting.
Thank you, Jennifer. The next speaker I'd like to invite is Tim Matthews from UK Uncut. And Hannah as well, also from UK Uncut.
Hi everyone, I'm Tim. So I'm going to give just like a brief overview of UK Uncut's actions over the last year, because last week it was our first anniversary, our first birthday, and then Hannah's going to talk a bit about her experience of going on actions. The first action was last October on the 27th, and that was when a group of people went to Oxford Street and occupied the Vodafone there, because Vodafone, through investigative journalism, came out, had avoided a £6 billion tax bill, basically by doing a deal with Her Majesty Revenue and Customs. Then, since it started off, UK Uncut started off as a hashtag, a group of friends who were really angry against the cuts, and they really wanted to take direct action to fight it and add a new tactic to the anti-cuts movement. Then soon after, obviously, came the fantastic student demonstrations and marches, and that really gave another impetus to the fight back, as we all know, and resistance to the cuts. And after that, students have been at the forefront and central to UK Uncut's success, whether it's in London or really more to the point around the country, because there have been actions on high streets around the country in Liverpool and Glasgow, Edinburgh and Oxford. I've met a lot of students who have been involved in those occupations and sitting in high street chains which avoid tax, Boots, Tesco's and Topshop, as we know, and so on. And it's always been students who have been there putting their bodies on the line to highlight this really important point that there is an alternative to the cuts, and it's simply about raising income from those who should be paying their fair share, those tax avoiders and banks, for example, who caused the crisis, and who owe their existence to the massive bailout that the state, i.e. the taxpayer, gave them. And obviously, rather than these people taking responsibility for the cuts and paying their fair share, we, the people, the public, the people least able to pay, are being asked to pay. So, and students have made that point clear. And obviously they've also made the point clear that if we raise revenue in this way, we can afford to have education for all, we can afford to pay for the EMA, and it's a very easy thing to do. And clearly it's a political choice, an ideological choice by the government not to pursue this. After that, students again and also UK Uncut were involved in supporting the TUC march on the 26th and Fortnum Mason's occupation, which are in court 2 or 3 days after the November student demo, which we're wholeheartedly supporting and trying to get as many people down for as possible. Then again, it was supporting the strike on June 30th with the PCS and NUT, which was really super important. And earlier on this month, the Block the Bridge, which was intended to draw attention and highlight and try to stop the passage of the bill which will essentially destroy the NHS in the UK as we know it, and in England and in Wales. And that was also where the first meeting, the first General Assembly, which led to the formation of Occupy London, took place. So that was, again, thanks to students in large part and other members of the public coming together and really linking their struggles. I think that's what hopefully UCAN Cut's contribution as a network has been able to achieve, bringing that kind of community of activists together. And yeah, again, LSX is also a good opportunity for people to come together. And for example, last week we did an action whereby we went to HMRC to demand the resignation of Dave Hartnett, the top tax chief, because he basically left Vodafone of £6 billion, also Goldman Sachs, the investment bank, of £10 million. And now we've launched a legal action against the government to say, if you don't quash that deal, we'll take you to court and make sure you get the money that we deserve and need and should be available to us. And obviously then, we can afford what now is being cut. After that, we're going to be wholeheartedly supporting the student demonstration and helping out in any way we can. And Hannah will now talk about her experience.
Hello, I was firstly a UCL student and was involved in student marches last year and more recently in UCAN Cut actions. I've been to, I wholeheartedly believe UCAN Cut ties in with student politics completely intrinsically, with concessions being made to large corporate organisations directly taking from the welfare state, including education and university funding. I'm a history student. For students the year below me, all arts and humanities funding has been cut. The increased fees are to pay for that, but that doesn't justify them. I've been to quite a few UCAN Cut demos. More recently, the march from London Stock Exchange down to Her Majesty Revenue and Customs, and also the important Block the Bridge one. I think that in holding up large companies to account, we can make steps to get money back into the public and places it's really needed.
I'd now like to introduce our last speaker, which is Mark Campbell. Mark is a part of Save London Met and is on the UCU National Exec, and will also be standing for UCU General Secretary. So, Mark Campbell.
I think we should start with a few basics. There's a few basics that some people in government and some people in our universities have forgot. First of all, universities and colleges are public goods that serve society, full stop. Okay? We have to keep reminding them of that. Number two, you can't have too much education. Okay? So they might say 50% too much. We can't have 50% in. Why not 100%? What's wrong with that? Why can't everybody be educated? You can't have too much. Thirdly, and as importantly, education should be publicly funded and free for everybody from grade to grade. Those three statements I've just made are the public policy of the union that I'm in. They're the public policy of UCU because those of us in UCU have fought for that to be made public policy. However, policy is just bits of paper unless you actually fight to defend that policy and to put it into practice. And that's what we need to do. I look at my university, London Met, and you'll hear this on an awful lot of these things because London Met's usually the barometer that's used to show you how bad it can get. It's a bit depressing actually when you get up, you always say, it's a little bit worse where I am. Not very good when you do it like that. But I'll tell you what's good about London Met. What's good about London Met is 60% of our students, the most in the entire country, come from manual working backgrounds where none of their family have ever gone to university. That's a good thing. I tell you what's also a good thing. We have more black and ethnic minority students in our one university than the entire Russell Group put together. That's a good thing. We have more single mothers. We have more mature students. We basically look like the working class because we are the working class. And that's what we will defend. So with the excellent reviews of the HE White Paper, and people have to go away and read it, we need the facts. I can stand here and give you rhetoric. Rhetoric's useful. But we need the facts to back it up. And the reality is, London Met, along with Middlesex and a few others, are the first on the hit list. That's a fact. Okay? What we're going to do, what our Vice-Chancellor's decided to do, is the following. We're going to keep fees relatively low. Relatively low, still double what they are, by the way, but relatively low, around £7,500. And on the surface, that doesn't sound as bad as £9,000. But you can't look at fees without looking at the fact that they've removed all of the block grant for teaching. So the only money that will be coming in for teaching those courses is from the fees. So how do they keep the fees lower? Tell you what you do. You get rid of the subjects that apparently working class students like ours don't need. You get rid of all of the critical subjects. So London Met's Vice-Chancellor is cutting 70% of our courses. We're cutting history, we're cutting philosophy, we're cutting performing art, we're cutting trade union studies, and a whole host of others. Because apparently working class students don't need to think critically because they might start questioning their lot. Well, actually, I want them to question their lot. Because the fourth point I haven't made, the fourth point we should say, is what is education for? And if it's not for liberation, it is not for nothing. Education should be about liberating ourselves. That's what we need. Now, when you start from that, you realise the task ahead of us. And that means we have to have some watchwords. And my watchwords are the following. Unity, solidarity, and action. And you need all three. And let's think about it. Unity means we actually connect with workers and students. We connect with the unemployed and disabled activists. We connect with community activists. We connect with those who are being attacked for being gypsies. We defend everybody who is being attacked by the 1% who are trying to divide us, the 90%. We always have to stand together in unity. But that means solidarity as well. And solidarity isn't cheap. Solidarity means we have to go out on a limb when our brothers and our sisters are being attacked. I'm really proud of the fact of what's going on at St Paul's in terms of the occupation. We have had brilliant students from London Met in occupation from day one. In fact, they were intent number one because they know what they're fighting for. And we've had UCU and Unison members down in support from London Met to say, that's an education. That's what it is. You're doing something to fight for your education and you're being educated in the process. And what we launched, I announced this week, there was an open mic type thing at St Paul's on Thursday. And we announced from there an open letter to trade unionists, which we've now got over 350 people have signed, which says, as trade unionists, we will stand with St Paul's and we will not allow the police to move that on, whatever that will take. Because that's what we've got to do. It means when it comes to November the 30th, and as important, November the 9th, because November the 9th is a staging post on the way to November the 30th. At UCU NEC, I helped move the motion which said UCU fully supports our students. We will be demanding that we, all branches, support the 9th. We should be doing that. We bring that unity together at every single point because that's how we go forward. We go forward in unity. But the third one is action. Now, I've mentioned the 9th and I've mentioned the 30th. On the 30th, I think it'll be exciting as hell. There's going to be 3 million of us out, plus students, plus community activists, and everybody else who wants to be there, because pensions is the lightning rod. It's the catalyst, but it's not the only thing. We all know what we're fighting for. And also, don't let them say the money isn't there. As though this attack, and it's already been mentioned in terms of the white paper, it isn't a financial imperative. The money is there. They just choose to spend it on themselves rather than on us. That's the reality of it. And a bit of research UCU did. If we increased the corporation tax for large corporations, so not the small ones, large corporations, if we increased that to the OECD average of about 32.6%, we could get rid of all fees, and we could even introduce some grants back. The money is there. Don't let them tell you otherwise. The money is there, and actually we want it spent on our public services, and therefore we have to raise that alternative. You invest, you don't cut. You invest in public services. The only thing they should be increasing is taxation on the rich. That's what they should be increasing. As simple as that. We have to stand together, we have to stand firm, and we have to start asking the question, what do we do after November the 30th? November the 30th will be great, but we can't have one-day strike actions every 5 months. That will not bring them down. It helps unify us and bring us together. But when we've had 3 million workers out on the 30th, they will be asking the question as well, how do we bring this lot down? Because they need to be brought down. And then I think we need to start opening a wider argument. And my strategy has always been one, and it's how I was brought up. If they hit you, you hit them back. If you hit them back and they don't fall down, you hit them a bit harder. And you keep hitting them harder till they fall down. Now in that means escalation. And in my mind, escalation is not having a one-day strike and then, well, let a few of you go off there and a few of you go off there. In my mind, escalation is you come out, you stay out until you win.